Welcome back to Comical Opinions. This is Gabe Hernandez, and today we have a review of the big one, Spawn number 350, which is the culmination of the Heaven Hell War arc, which ends with a new ruler of Hell, a new status quo for Earth, and big changes on the horizon. But before we get started, please like, share, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell for notification. Your attention is greatly appreciated, and make sure to stay tuned to the end for our final rating and score. Now let's get into the credits before we get started with the story. Spawn number 350 is written by Rory McConville, and scripting assistance, if you will, and story ideas by Todd McFarlane. Art by Brett Booth, Carlo Barberi, and Adelso Corona. So we've got a small team of artists on this one because it's a more than double size issue, which makes sense. Colors by J. David Ramos, letters by Tom Orzechowski, and the cover A, which is the main cover, is rendered by Puppeteer Lee, which I'm assuming is not is a is a an assumed name, not the given name. Anyway, okay. So where do we leave off before we get to the big 350 issue? The forces from all across the different realms are converging at the Hell's Keep, which is where the throne is stored, because the person who assumes the throne gets control of Hell, and their powers get amplified by multitudes, and they're in control of everything. You have Clown's forces, which have just recently come from dominating heaven and laying waste to the entire Golden City. And so Clown wants the throne for himself. You have Sin's forces that are converging from the other side of the wastelands and hell to, of course, claim the front throne. And you have Spawn and his allies, the Scorched and the Haunt, and everyone else also making their way towards the throne, with Spawn intending to take the throne for himself because he can't trust anybody else to do it. In the previous issue, Sin and Cataclysm had their fight out, and Cataclysm winds up getting killed in the process. So he is out of the race for the throne. So now we pick up this issue, and it is a double-sized issue. It's 50 plus pages, including the epilogue, and so it's a big issue that you have to read through, but it moves fast. So what happens in this issue? Clown, Sin, and Spawn all converge at the throne, and they duke it out in the best way that they can. So there's all kinds of necroplasmic battles and displays of power, all kinds of fighting, slashing, punching, hitting, kicking, guns, everything you can imagine, and they throw everything at it. And by the time the fight is done, or I should say, in the middle of the fight, Clown falls out of the race by getting his head ripped off, which is unfortunate. So that's the end of Clown. So if we're talking about status quo changes, that's it for Clown. He's done. He's out and out for good. Then there is a bit of a battle, and then right at the last minute, somebody claims the throne, and there's a big flash of green light, and that changes everything. Now, if you don't want to know who took the throne, tune out now. So I'm going to give you a couple seconds. 3, 2, 1. Okay, spoiler time. You want to know who took the throne? It wasn't any of them. It was, with a planned bait and switch by Spawn, Nyx. So that means Nyx is in charge of Hell, and she becomes the new Queen of Hell. And she uses her power quite judiciously and expeditiously right off the bat. The first thing she does, whammo, she takes out Sin, says, "I've had enough of you. You've caused too much trouble," and she obliterates him. So he's gone. And then in the follow-up to that, she looks at Spawn and says, "This could have been prevented. We went through all this trouble because you were too prideful to find a different way and work together to make this right. And so you are out of here." But she doesn't kill Spawn. She zaps him back to Earth. And in the course of that snap, she winds up snapping everybody back to their respective locations. The Scorched, um, Gunslinger Spawn, Haunt, everyone involved gets sent back to Earth. And then the new twist, which we find out, is that while the battle was raging for the Heaven Hell War, the dead zones have expanded, and they now have expanded to the point where the dead zones now encompass the entire planet, which means Spawn and all the characters and the demons that are all on the planet's surface or on Earth are effectively powerless. They have their strength, their speed, and their capabilities, but in essence, their costumes and their necroplasmic powers are shut off. So now we have a new ruler of Hell, a new rule of hell that brings some potential weirdness with her because she's coming from she's coming from the from another realm, even though she was originally marked by Hell long time ago. And so that's what gave her the ability to take the throne. But now, because of her tie to Gaia, that means potentially bad things, or not bad things, but unclear consequences for Earth and Hell in general. And topside, she Spawn, Gunslinger, Scorched, everyone who's involved is still have their costumes, but effectively they are powerless. That's where we leave off to find out, what's the fallout and the consequences of the war and the new Queen of Hell. Uh, Interesting fact about the, where does this fit with the tie-ins from King Spawn to the Scorched to Gunslinger Spawn and everything in between? Well, now they all go their separate ways and they go back to their respective titles without the specter of the Heaven Hill War hanging on them. But presumably, if it all ties together in one big Spawn verse, they are now all effectively powerless. And so we'll see how that's, so in other words, we have an outcome from a crossover event that not only changes status quo for one or more individuals, it changes the status quo for every title across the board, which is a pretty big deal. So we'll see how that plays out in the future. So what do we like about Spawn number 350? Did it deliver? The answer is, from my point of view, yes. Big action, big surprises, big status quo changes, the end of the line for at least a couple characters, namely Sin, Cataclysm, and Clown, and big promise for big consequences in the future, considering now that Spawn and everyone else effectively they have their costumes, but their costumes don't allow them to emit any kind of necroplasmic power. So that's a pretty big deal. And so if you're looking for a climactic finale that feels like it meant something and that it has an effect on where the titles go, this is it. What are the negatives? None, really. I mean, this is exactly what you want in a big crossover event. Now, the trip to get from A to Z, which is where where this big finale wound up, was a little wonky. You had some side steps, you had some missteps, and some confusion about, especially where the tie-in titles come into play. But this is it. If you want a big finale, this is exactly what you're looking for. Quick word about the art. What do we think? We have a small team of artists working on this, including Brett Booth, Carlo Barberi, and Adelso Corona. And how did they do? Fantastic. This book looks great from start to finish. There are some change-ups. You notice the change-ups in the art team from the main story to the epilogue. So, and the style changes enough that you can notice it, but it's not terrible. Or at least it's not bad enough that the notice is a problem, but you do notice it. But overall, the art looks fantastic. So final thoughts, what do we think about Spawn number 350 from Image Comics? If you were looking for a big climactic finale, this is the way to do it. You go all out, you have big action, big surprises, big changes, and big consequences for the future, and especially consequences that affect all the titles across the Spawnverse, which is exactly how it should be for every major event. So therefore, we're going to give Spawn number 350 a solid 9 out of 10. I hope you enjoyed this review. Before you leave, please like, share, comment, subscribe to Comical Opinions for more reviews and analysis every week. You have a great day.